Bonjour, good morning, and sawubona from sunny South Africa. And as you know, sometimes we can have too much sun in South Africa. In fact, for the last 4 years, we've had far more sun and far too little rain than we needed, and we were in a state of intense drought. This is not foreign to South Africa. As the 30th driest country in the world, we have the bottommost 15% of precipitation, almost the opposite of Canada. But the drought has focused the mind. It has organized our thinking about how water should be managed into the 21st century, and I think this could be an important contribution to the discussion that you're having in the Blue Cities Conference. I want to talk about 2 cities as the examples of how we have dealt with the drought. One is the city of Cape Town, a city that came close to the concept of day zero, and this made headline news all over the world. And I also want to talk about the city of eThekwini. One of the things that has come through very starkly in the last drought is the interdependence between the city and the ecology around it. So in the case of Cape Town, one of the points of intensity around the drought is the growing needs of the agricultural communities and the smaller towns upstream that in turn organized to magnify the impact of the drought in the downstream city itself. And because it didn't have the requisite relationships in that ecological infrastructure domain, we had a much higher impact than I think we needed to. The city of eThekwini, although it had a larger span of the 4-year drought, in fact it had all 4 years of the drought as opposed to the city of Cape Town, which had the 1 year, managed this in a much better way because it did have a relationship with the entire catchment. In fact, the concept of ecological infrastructure in the Ngeni catchment, within which eThekwini is the big city downstream, organized for the co-relationships to re-examine the governance and a new model of how we deal with extreme events. In fact, one of the things that did come out of the drought with intensity are the 3 corner pillars of how we manage water into the future. The first has to be the concept of cities organizing for themselves to be in a much larger domain than the city limits. So the ecological infrastructure approach, or the catchment management approach, is indeed something that we have now internalized in policy inside South Africa. Attached to that is organizing for the city itself to organize its self-sufficiency as a blue city, meaning getting into the forefront of water-sensitive urban design. And eThekwini has showed us the way of how we start that model in a rapid, cascading and reinforcing way that organizes to empower the other elements of that ecological community. The second thing that came to the fore, closely related to this, is the concept of governance in the 21st century. Water governance can no longer be just about the water practitioners. Water has to have the requisite interrelationship with the environmental players, with the energy players, with the agriculture and production players, and organize itself into a much broader socio-economic framework. And the third pivotal learning that came out of the drought as an extreme event, which I know is going to help us going into the future, is of course organizing for ourselves to redefine what constitutes the water team in the 21st century. Like governance needs all these other players, the water team also needs to expand itself in that kind of manner. But there are also very big pluses that came out of the drought event. One of those big pluses is that served as a catalytic space for us to launch ourselves from the very traditional technologies that we've been using to manage water into the new realm of what we call down south, the water and sanitation revolution, around organizing for grey water and recycling to be a mainstream component of our water supply, to organize for water conservation and demand management to be at the forefront of the water management paradigm, and of course using the opportunity to launch the new technologies like the sanitation revolution technologies to become mainstream into the 21st century management of water. And we are very keen to take these examples from the cities that have managed to do this inside South Africa and scale them up across the country, across the region, and hopefully across the world. And we look forward to your participation as international partners who, together with us, can organize for ourselves around cities being the center of the water and sanitation revolution in the world.